Hey everyone, are you thinking about buying a cover stitch machine or perhaps upgrading? Well, in this video I will go through all the things you need to know before you buy a cover stitch machine. So basically there are 4 different types of cover stitch machine. The 2-needle one, which can sew a wide cover stitch seam and also do a single needle chain stitch. And there are also now 3-needle cover stitch machine, which I think has become the new standard, and they can both do a narrow and wide cover stitch and also of course a chain stitch. And the good thing about the 3-needle one is on the reverse side you will get a really nice decorative stitch you can also use on the right side of the fabric because it is so pretty and gives great coverage. And the 3rd cover stitch machine is the Serger Combo cover stitch machine. Now when I bought my first cover stitch machine, pretty much the only available option was to buy a combination machine. So that was what I did, and that was in the early 2000s. Now those are not quite as common, but there are lots of brands that still offer the combination machine. And the good part of course is that it does save space and also money usually to just have one machine doing both serge and the cover stitching. But be aware that on a lot of cover stitches, especially in the lower price range, you will have to reset the machine and do some changes just to set it up for cover stitching or serging, and that can take several minutes, and rethreading, so there's more time that comes with that. So that's something you need to consider. Not all cover stitch machines are like that. For instance, the Baby Lock Ovation, that you don't need to change all the setup, so you can actually use it much more smoothly. But then again, that is a cover stitch Serger Combo that is way more expensive than most of the ones available on the domestic market, but that's an option to consider if that's something you want, a combination machine. And the 4th type of machine is, I would say, the newest player on the market, and that is the top cover stitch or the double-sided cover stitch machine. And what that does is it has an extra looper on the right side which goes back and forth to create the top cover stitch, which is pretty much, I would say, the standard of hemming when it comes to ready-to-wear, active wear, and also other type of knit applications. It's a beautiful stitch, and those top cover machines can also be used like a regular 3-thread cover stitch. So that's also another option to consider if you are buying a cover stitch machine. But it's not just about deciding what type of cover stitch machine. There are also other things to consider, and I'll go run through them now. And the first rule of thumb, which I think is the most important one and the one that I made the mistake when I first bought my first cover stitch machine, is to buy the best machine that you can afford. Because if you don't, well, the cover stitching situation will usually be a very painful experience. For instance, when I bought my first cover stitching machine at FUF, I bought the cheaper copy of the more higher end FUF combination machine, and that I had for over 10 years, but every time it was a pain to use. It did serve its purpose, but it made sewing a pretty unpleasant experience. Now at the time my budget was very limited, and that just the investment of that buying that was quite hefty, but in hindsight I think that I should have spent a little bit more and gotten a much better machine which would made the sewing experience much better. Especially a cover stitch machine, they can be fickle, so when you're buying a cover stitch machine, that is not the time to be super frugal. And if your budget is limited, I would definitely look at the second-hand market instead and buy a used machine rather than trying to save on a really cheap cover stitch machine. Another thing that I think is really important to consider is what kind of accessories that you will use, because different brands comes with different type of accessories. Some has a large range of accessories, such as Janome, the one that I have, and some has a more limited selection. So you might ending up buying a machine that doesn't really have the sort of presser feet and other attachment that you want in order to create your planned make. So that's something I think you should do a lot of research. And some, of course, accessories and attachment are generic, so you can buy not a brand specific one, but some, such as presser foot, are usually brand specific. So that is definitely one of those things that I think is important to consider. And I would say my minimal viable attachment is that I think that the brand that you're looking into should have a clear presser foot as an option, because that will make cover stitching straight so much easier. So that is my sort of minimal demand when I am considering buying a new cover stitch machine. It should have a clear presser foot, but again, the specification for you might be different, but that's something I would definitely recommend that you have as a minimum criteria for deciding on which machine to buy. And I'm a big friend of try before you buy. Now, these days, a lot of machines are sold online, which means that you don't really have someone to show you how to use it, or you're not able to try it unless you go to the shop and then buy it online. So I will definitely, my personal experience is to actually buy from a trusty seller, so you're able to try different type of machines and have a discussion with the seller and go to different type of sellers, because usually they represent different brands, and do your research thoroughly before you actually purchase the machine, because it can be a little bit overwhelming in the beginning, especially if you're not used to cover stitching, which is why I'm a big fan of trying before you buy. And if you decide to buy a machine on location, I will also check and see if the seller offers classes. On some brands, I think actually classes are included in the purchase, and some other sellers also always offer classes when one buys a machine from them. And I have bought all my machines from a vendor that offer classes, and that has been a godsend, because especially if you're new to learning, say, a cover stitch machine or a serger, having an experienced teacher to show you the ropes, well, that makes everything so much easier when you're at home and don't really know what to do when things doesn't work out as planned. So I am a big believer in, if you are picking between different sellers, pick one that also offers classes, because that will make the transition into cover stitching so much easier. And my final advice is that you should read reviews and compare machines, because there are so many brands and there's so many models, and as I said before, there are also different types. So I would definitely recommend that you go online and check out Facebook's group. I can highly recommend the Cover Stitch Coverlock Facebook group, because over there it's a big group where I'm sure you will find uses of pretty much any type of cover stitch machine available. And of course, there are lots of other sites as Pattern Review, where people also have reviewed the cover stitch machine, and Amazon, of course. So there are a lot of different ways to do your research before you buy. Just a little bit word of warning here. In Sweden, we have a saying that goes like this: health stays silent. So if the machine is working, well, people won't usually go online and start asking questions and complain about it. But when things are not going, they are probably much more vocal about it. So just because someone has gone online and heavily criticized a particular brand or a particular model of a cover stitch machine doesn't really need to mean that all the cover stitch machine from that brand is awful. It can sometimes also be a user error. So keep that in mind, that just because someone has a bad experience doesn't mean that the brand or the particular machine is a bad purchase. So these were my key points to consider when you're buying a cover stitch machine. I hope you found them useful. And if you want to learn more about cover stitching, well, I have done so many videos about this particular topic, and I'm also coming out with a cover stitch book in the beginning of 2019, so stay tuned for that. And if you head over to my blog, thelaststitch.com, you will also find lots of cover stitch tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe for weekly sewing videos. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!